First thing on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of the December 10th meeting. Anybody have any additions or subtractions? Okay. I have a motion.
Yeah.
Gary has a motion to approve. Second. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand, please. You weren't here. You weren't here. BZA. It's approved. We had 3.
Yeah.
All right. All right. First thing on the minutes agenda is TMS 1370.
We got to do the oath of office and then our election.
Pardon?
On the agenda in front of you, we have the oath of office first, and then we're going to
Oh,
elect
okay.
our chair and vice chair.
All right.
Everyone will raise their right hand and repeat after me. I'm going to go very slow because that's how I have to do this whenever I get sworn in. I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I am duly qualified according to the Constitution of this state to exercise the duties of the office to which I have been appointed, and that I will, to the best of my ability, discharge the duties thereof, and preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of this state and of the United States. So help me God.
All right, and y'all have a form up there that you could just pass around and print your name and sign, and then you'll give it back to me. And then we can go ahead with our election of chair and vice chair.
You
So-
want to do the nomination, man?
Yes, if y'all want to proceed with the discussion for election of chair and vice chair.
I nominate Denny Chickless as chair.
I'll second.
I'll second that.
I'll do it. You want to do it?
I'm not here. I'm
missing the meeting. All in favor, raise your right hand. Vice Chair. You have nomination? Volunteer?
John?
No, she just came. Thank you, Eric. Any other nominations? All in favor, raise your right
Alright. So we will get started tonight with new business as we have no old business. I'll go over my staff report and then the applicant can talk to you a little bit about the request. I'll pull up the staff report for y'all to take another look at. So the variance, or excuse me, special exception request is for 110 North Palmetto Street. This is a special exception to allow for short-term rental use per the UDO section 3.3. This property is zoned GR5, which is general residential. The ordinance requires short-term rental uses in GR5 to have a special exception granted by the Board of Zoning Appeals in order to have that use on the property. I won't go over the criteria below here word for word. If y'all have any questions about it, you can let me know. The background for this is the need for the special exception was determined by staff through a review of a lodging conditional use application, and that's the permitting mechanism for short-term rentals for the town. So they are requesting to allow short-term rental use. The property in question is located on a corner. Jump to the here's the property. It's approximately 3/4 of an acre and larger than the surrounding residential properties in the general vicinity. The lot features substantial vegetation and trees that buffer the residence and cottage from neighboring properties in the right of way. Short-term renting is permitted in all but one of the neighboring properties, all but this property here. Immediately surrounding the property in question, the applicant owns the property and resides on site, and the property in question meets all other conditions required for a lodging conditional use permit. So based on the required criteria, it appears that the short-term renting on the property would not have a negative impact on the surrounding properties or the general public. And I will let the applicant talk to you a little bit more about the request and their property.
Good evening. Thank you for reviewing my application. So I am the property owner. I live at 108. 110 is just the address for the cottage, but it's all one property, 3/4 of an acre. So I know all relevant information was included in that packet. This is an ADU that we built approximately 2 years ago. We're requesting the special exception for short-term rentals. It sits back off the lot. It has off-street parking, on-site parking, heavily wooded on all sides. We spoke to all the neighbors that, could potentially be affected by any type of rental situation on that lot. They were all good with it. They signed a letter. So that's our request.
So you live full-time on the same lot?
Yes, correct.
And I noticed in your application here, when you're on vacation, are you going to rent it?
We have no vacations planned, but that's a good question. Probably not. We probably wouldn't want anybody in there while we were on vacation.
Okay.
Is 108 and 110 part of that property?
Correct. It's all one property. We were just required to have that cottage addressed separately, but it is one property.
Any other question? I had a hard time finding it. Because it's over, all the trees and everything like that.
Yeah, it's tucked back off the road quite a bit and we kept vegetation along the perimeter to kind of keep it set back.
You're talking about the little, small house, correct?
It's the small house on the corner. My house sits to the left of that, over where the cursor is. You can see the front of it from the road through the driveway because there's parking in the front.
Any discussion? Any questions? You have a motion one way or the other.
Move we approve the special exception.
You have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving right along. We have a very similar request for our next item. This is also for a special exception on a GR5 general residential property. Again, the need for the special exception was determined by staff through review of a lodging conditional use permit application, which again is that mechanism to allow people to do any sort of short-term renting in the town. So the applicant is requesting to allow short-term rental use on their property. The property in question is approximately 0.26 acres and is located at the end of Mary Celestia Drive in a cul-de-sac. The property features mature trees and vegetation, though not all of the existing buffers are on the subject property. There is a large HOA area that is heavily wooded on one side of the property. Short-term rentals are not permitted on any of the parcels surrounding this property. That's because the majority of them are zone GR5, which is the same zoning, so they would have to go through that same special exception process that we're talking about right now. The other lots are part of Colonial Pines PUD, which does not allow short-term rentals per their covenants. The applicant owns the property and resides on site and meets all other requirements of short-term rental conditions. So based on the required criteria, it does not appear that short-term renting would have a negative impact on the general public or surrounding properties. And
Is it the person here?
yes.
Hi, good evening, and thank you all for taking time to take a look at my special request permit. I believe my house in Somerville, I try to represent it very well. I do have a background in residential real estate as well. I was licensed from 2018 up until July of last year. I'm basically asking for this permit due to the fact that I am going to be traveling for work a pretty good amount of time. I do still have a business in real estate revolved around investing. So I'm going to be leaving my house, for extended periods of time, somewhere between, 1 to 2 weeks at a period. And it seemed that, this would be a very suitable option for, the property that I own. So.
Question?
Yeah, just excuse me. You said how long you'd be gone for to crack, but
Usually I'm no longer gone for more than 2 weeks. It's usually anywhere between about 3 to 14.
and you think you can find rentals for that short period of time?
I believe so. Yes, sir. I've got a part of a lot of RIA real estate investing groups around town as well too. And one of the companies that I've been in contact with, they pretty much specialize in finding I guess whenever they're renting the property out for like longer terms, so that way it wouldn't just be weekend stays and things like that. Basically, just to kind of keep the house occupied and enjoyed by the time whenever I'm out of town for the most part.
Thank you.
So you live on site,
Yes, sir.
but you won't be living on site when you're renting.
So the main plan is actually would be living on site because I'm going to be still living in the house, and I was going to, if I granted the permit, I would still try to rent the room out. But whenever I am out of town, I would like to list the house fully for a short-term rental. And that would be out whenever I'm not on site. But I would do plan on hiring a property management company to, help me with that process when I am, not out of town, not readily accessible.
So if you're not there and somebody's renting and a neighbor has an issue
Mhm.
and you're not there, who can be there?
So the property management, one of the property managers that I've had a conversation with, he actually lives about 6 minutes from my house. I forgot the neighborhood, it's over on Farm Hill Drive. I'm very close with my neighbors, everybody that's in the cul-de-sac as well. My next door neighbor, Miss Sue, is actually a retired police officer. So she's obviously got all my contact information. I'd be more than happy to take an eye on everything. But when I am out of town, majority of the time would be, through the property management company. My, family also does still reside in Berkeley County as well too. So there's, I could definitely have anybody at the house usually within a reasonable time frame.
Just to be clear, the ordinance does require you to be on site when the applicant checks it, or the renter checks in.
Okay.
You do have to be on site for that.
Okay. All right. So yeah. Okay. I wasn't aware of that. So all right. Well, if that'd be my only option for when I am on site, then that'd be fine as well too.
So how many people when you're not there, how many renters can be inside at one time?
It's a 4-bedroom home and I'm just in the one master bedroom. So I would only be, probably renting out 1 bedroom.
Okay.
Mhm.
I move we approve the special exception.
I'll second the motion. Any other discussion, questions?
Yeah, I've got a question. Because there's a lot of information floating all around the state about short-term rentals. If the town changes our philosophy and our bylaws and everything else, are these short-term rentals I'm asking staff, are they gonna be grandfathered in, or will they have to adhere to the new laws?
So I hesitate to use the term grandfathered in because that means a lot of different things to
Right.
people. Basically, we would treat it like any other conditional use. If the use is discontinued for a certain amount of time, and I would have to double check on that amount of time. But typically, if the use is discontinued at all, or if the property changed hands, they would have to reapply to show that they meet the conditions. And that would most likely apply to the special exception as well, because it's a condition of the use.
Okay,
So if, let's say, another structure was built, or, the property changed hands and the nature of the use had changed, we'd have to address that at that time. They're also required to have a business license, which the zoning department reviews. I specifically review those business licenses, and we verify, if you decided to sell the property, and it wasn't your primary residence anymore, we would check that every year to make sure that they're still being taxed at the 4% rate rather than the 6% rate. So there are checks and balances to make sure that the property does not change and fall out of line with the attended approved use. Does that
Okay.
answer your question?
yes,
Okay.
thank you.
If there were significant complaints over the year, would the business license get renewed?
We would investigate those complaints. Obviously, the validity of some complaints versus others, we'd address that. But yes, anytime someone submits a complaint to our code enforcement department, or really just directly to our department, we will investigate that.
You said that your house has, what, 4 bedrooms?
Yes, sir.
Now, would the, if we grant a special thing, is he gonna be able to rent out all, in other words, a bedroom to each person, each?
We could grant the exception and condition it, I think, on
And
no more than,
Well, that's what I'm leading up to.
So currently, we don't regulate the number of people, it's the number of listings. So we have software that is on the back end of these rental sites, so we can see exactly how many listings. So if it were listed individually by room, that we're able to see that, but it doesn't limit the amount of people. If he were doing long-term renting and he had multiple leases, that would be considered a boarding house, and that is no longer residential. But under our current ordinance, there is not a limit for how many people, or if there is a limit to how many structures you can rent out of, but there's not a limit to how many bedrooms.
Well, understand that that's not in the ordinance. Could we make that a condition of our approval of the special exception? I mean, we can make conditions on variances. You know,
I guess my response to that would be, I'm not sure how we would enforce that unless you specifically made a condition of approval that only one room, or there could be only one listing for the property. That's the only enforceable way that I could see. But in that event, I mean, he could still have 50 people in his house if he wanted, so.
Oh, and I'd like to add too, that would be not ideal for me either, to have multiple people in the house at one time. If, you know, when I'm going to be occupying my home and if I do get granted the permit, the one room that will be advertised for rent will be just advertised for one family, one person or one sole family as well. I would not entertain, you know, multiple different groups of people into the house at one time. That does not sound like a very good recipe for anything. So.
Becca, the 180 days, is that a kind of honor system tracking?
So the county, we go by the tax ratio. So the county verifies primary residency. So we check all tax records when we review this. And like I said, when they go through the business license, renewing their business license, we verify that again to make sure that they're still taxed at the 4% rate. We also do safety inspections. Myself, the fire marshal, and the building department all go out to the property as a part of that lodging conditional use permit and complete an inspection. Obviously, if anything were misrepresented through, you know, via the application, you know, we would clarify that at that time. But to answer your question about the primary residency, that's verified by the county taxes.
The question is that, so he has to be there like 51% of the time, right?
Correct.
Okay.
It has to be his primary residence.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. All in favor? Raise your right hand. Okay. Pass. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Next.
All right, so our third and final item for tonight is a variance request for 306 West Richardson Avenue. This is a variance request to UDO section 2.5.5B, which notes the accessory building height limitation of 20 feet. They are requesting a variance to allow 24 feet maximum height of a detached garage. I will go over the background. Excuse me. The need for the variance was determined by the applicant in designing their new construction project for a vacant lot on West Richardson Avenue. Based on the state mandated criteria, it does not appear that all 4 conditions are met or that a hardship is present. Just to go over those conditions, extraordinary conditions. So these are supposed to be extraordinary, exceptional conditions pertaining to the piece of property. In staff's evaluation, the conditions of the property were not exceptional. The lot is about 1.5 feet lower in the back of the property rather than in the front based on the site survey, although the site does have variation in elevations. This is a vacant lot, and the proposed project can be designed to meet the height requirement of the ordinance with the existing conditions of the property. As it relates to other properties in the vicinity are subject to the accessory building height limitation. Half of the properties in this block are zoned neighborhood mixed use. The other half are general residential, all have height limitations for their accessory buildings in addition to their primary structures. All surrounding properties are also subject to the Board of Architectural Review, as they are within the historic district, where in general accessory buildings are supposed to be subordinate to primary residences. Just to clarify, the garage will not be taller than the house, so I don't want that to be misunderstood in that part of the report. As far as D, detriment, the authorization of a variance could be of detriment to the district, as the historic district guidelines and intent of the zoning is that accessory buildings are subordinate to primary residences. And I will hand out a site plan so y'all can take a look at the overall while Ms. Fisher goes over their request.
Thank you.
Yeah, give me one so I can reference. Yeah, sure. Perfect. Oh, great. Thank you. Thank you. Good evening, everybody. And thank you for the opportunity to come and talk this evening. I know it seems like we are going in a real uphill. We're in a position to go uphill here with this board tonight to talk to you about why we would appreciate your consideration and to justify why you might want to consider our request for 4 feet. So to start down this road, we bought this lot about 2 years ago, and there is a real slope on the site from the front left corner to the back rear corner of 5 to 6 feet. So, and I know what Becca said is correct about, kind of in line there, but this lot slopes from left to right and from front to back. And we've had many things that we've tried to overcome in this process of designing this house. First and foremost was that we met with the town planning committee and we identified drainage issues that we needed to overcome and tree issues because there's a significant amount of grand trees on both sides of the property, and then drainage becomes an issue. So we have hurdled a lot of this, and I want to be mindful of your time and not go through some things that aren't significant to the request. But to begin with, this lot is an infill lot. It's situated between a home that is 1,200 square feet that was built in 1960 and a home that is 900 square feet that was built in 2006. So the drainage, we hired somebody, we had a plan. It was determined by the city that they wanted to ask for an easement and come up with their own plan. So we gave them an easement so they could then we could design in conjunction with them a drainage plan that would go along the right rear area that would then go over to the home property on the right, Miss Lopez's property. So they needed an easement from us. They needed an easement from them. So then the drainage can go over to the canal that's existing at the back of Miss Lopez's property. So we got through all that. And then in the meantime, we're dealing with trees, and we've had a significant, we were here in this chamber 3 times with the tree committee. We finally came to consensus last fall about the trees over on the right-hand side of the property that would be impacted by either disease or the easement. So we were allowed to take them down, and in addition to the 40-inch pine tree that you see in the middle of the approach to the garage. So, yes, sir. I'm looking at it from Richardson, right. So the left side is the green. This goes to the home on the left. Yeah, thank you. So in the design, and we've hired a fantastic architect here that understands the BAR rules, and in trying to keep with the BAR, we detach the garage. Now, I do understand that the garage could be attached, but we're trying to be mindful of the priority or the recommendation of the BAR. So we detached the garage. Little did I didn't want to detach a garage for a lot of reasons, but we did. And we want to be good partners and mindful. So we've detached the garage. And then the next thing that came up is that because of that elm tree that you see over on the left that significantly impacts our yard, we cannot build within that parameter. We can't build within the parameters of the red lines in the back. So you see the garage is like right up to the edge. So we have significant limitations on the footprint of this home. So the ideal home for my husband and I, as we're I'm heading into retirement, he's retired, is a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, or a 3-bedroom, 3-bath house. But you can't get that on the footprint that we're allowed to have on the primary structure. So with us being a mixed use, we're aware that we could go up 40 feet. We don't want to go up 40 feet. I mean, we could have been proposing 3 townhouses there. That's not what we want. We want a nice home to situate in here. So when we can only have the 2 bedrooms, 2.5 baths on the main level, then there is an option to go upstairs. But when we go upstairs, then that ends up making the house 2,800 square feet. We're still not sure we want to go upstairs. We've had to eliminate the pool, by the way, just to FYI. But the garage in the back, we had wanted to have the space over the garage. First of all, detaching the garage, and that it's, has the opportunity for us to go up over the garage. But if we are limited at 20 feet, then the max height of the second story is 6 feet, 7 inches. That's a little bit, if we can't go any further than that, there's really no sense in going up over the garage. But it's kind of a shame to waste that space because, for us personally, we do have a member of the family who's financially impacted. They may or may not need to occupy that space. We may need or may not need to have a caregiver someday. We may decide that our daughter is going to take over the house and we go up over the garage. But that, so things like that come in our head. We're not really interested in that being an ADU for short-term rental.
Can I just ask a question?
Yes, sir.
The drawing shows you have some second story space.
We can have some second story, but I don't know if you've checked building costs these days, but wow, when you get a price tag of building this house for 1.1 with a second floor between the 2 existing properties and then try to justify that to the bank on appraisal, it makes it tough.
So even though it shows it, you might not go there.
We may not go there. We
Okay.
haven't gone back to the BAR yet. So the purpose of us coming tonight to seek approval is from here, then we'll go back to the architect and determine what our real design needs to be.
So you say that, look, we put a garage and we want to go over the garage.
I know it sounds
To
like
go over the garage and hold to the 20 feet, the living space ceiling would be under
6 feet, 7 inches.
how, trying to understand this, then in your garage, how high is your ceiling in your garage?
The ceiling in the garage, if we are limited to 20 feet, would only be the 6 feet, 7 inches.
So I'm talking about the parking spots in the garage, right?
Oh, yeah, that right now is only 8 feet. So the first level of the garage can only be 8 feet to afford us the 6 feet, 7 inches on the second floor. So ideally a garage anymore is 9 foot ceiling height, or 10, but we're okay with 9, but 8 still limits that too. So, and this photo or this drawing is with considering the 24-foot height. Otherwise, the garage is squatty next to the home. And it's been pointed out to us, it doesn't look as good aesthetically as it would if it's 24 feet. So you see the pitch on that back room toward the garage, that's the master suite or primary suite. And the height of that peak is 25 feet. So then the garage is still a foot under if you grant us the 4 feet.
So the exceptional conditions of this lot are you have the easement and you have the trees.
Yes.
and you can't turn the house in any other way because of the width of the lot. Therefore, you're trying to go from front to back.
That's right. The other,
And
if I might just add to the other thing that we needed to do is we needed to go to we've been in front of the BAR twice, not for design, but because this is mixed use, you have a 5-foot setback in the back and a 15-foot setback over on the right side where our drainage easement is. So we did go to BAR and we're able to achieve a 7-foot easement into that 15-foot setback, because otherwise we didn't have enough space for the house to exist whatsoever. It's been kind of like putting a birdhouse in the middle of trees because of the drip lines. And again, we're trying to be good citizens and comply with the trees and the drip lines and the drainage. And there's just been a lot with this very challenging lot.
so Becca, is this 20 feet limit for secondary buildings? Is that just in the historic district?
No, that's part of the zoning. The historic district doesn't have a height limitation. It's the zoning of the property that dictates what the height limitation is for an accessory or primary structure.
Because I know the only reason I bring this up is because John probably knows this. There's a house they're building on Shepherd, almost similar to this style design on Shepherd Street. And it's got a living space above the garage. Seems like, John, it's higher than 20 feet.
So different zonings have different restrictions.
Okay.
So for GR5 and GR2 properties, the maximum height is no taller than the primary residence unless it is a 1-story house and the subject accessory structure is located in the rear or side yard.
And what's that height on that G5? Okay,
It's 35 feet.
35. So we're still within the confines of that. This lot just happens to be mixed use. Miss Lopez's house over to the right is it G5?
It's GR5.
GR5. So she's got the opportunity for a 36-foot home and primary and secondary structure. But this lot, because we're right there with this mixed use, we're limited. But other historic homes are in that other zoning whereby we are in mixed use. But like I said, the home to the right is in GR5. The home to the left is also mixed use.
But in the back, aren't there
BAR
apartments?
I'm sorry.
Aren't there apartments on the
Yes.
On the opposite, the property, you can kind
Which
of see the roof there.
far higher than 24 feet?
Those were built before the UDO was
Yeah.
put in place. They're
Believe me.
20+ years old, I would say.
Also, at the back of that piece of property,
Yes, sir.
it slopes down to the canal.
Ours doesn't touch the canal, but Miss Lopez's, I'm not sure if it's Miss Lopez or the next one over that touches the canal. So the canal is at least a lot or two over, but that's where our drainage will go.
Yours does not go all the way back to the canal?
No, sir. Our property does not touch the canal. It's close, but it doesn't quite touch a canal.
Okay, because
We've got one coming in that the apartment complex, which is behind us. I'm not sure, but I think that might touch the canal.
oh, it's on the canal. It's right behind my
Right.
house.
Yeah. Okay. Right.
I know exactly where it is. It's
Okay.
never been built,
All right.
but
So aesthetically, we're trying to build an aesthetically pleasing home. We're trying to build a home that is, conducive to, what not unordinary that anybody else would do, and ask permission for 4 feet.
Yeah, Becca, I have a question also. I'm trying to find out what qualifies to connect the garage. If the garage was connected to the house, it wouldn't apply, right? We wouldn't be here.
Correct. So, a breezeway with just a roof would not be considered attached. That would still be considered detached between the garage and the main house. If they built a breezeway that had walls on either side, that would be considered attached. And
Why
then
wouldn't
they
you do
would,
that?
Well, again, we probably got down a path, that if I had to do things over again, we'd probably do a few things differently, but because we were trying to be in the confines of what the BAR wanted, we went with the detached garage. Now, what our plan has is in that end of the house by the garage is the primary suite. So in order to come into that part of the house, you're coming into the primary suite. Well, that doesn't work. So then, and this is an old site plan because this, we have had to change the plan a little bit, but not much. But anyway, so then this walkway that goes in front of the primary suite, if we were to create that as a walkway, then you're looking out your windows into a two-sided breezeway. And that's not really aesthetically pleasing either. So in order to make a, a walkway in that will fit within the rules, then I think.
just to clarify, the BAR does not require it to be detached. It's historically appropriate
That's
for it
right.
to be detached.
Yes, and I'm learning that,
But they have approved attached, but it's just a case by case.
right,
So I just want to make sure that's clear.
right. Well, probably in hindsight, we might have considered this differently, but now we're kind of out, we're in the 25-yard line on the fourth quarter and we've got, a minute left here. So it's amazing how much cost is involved in preparing this property. Design cost, tree cost, drainage cost, soil test cost. It doesn't take long to hit a $40,000 mark. And that's really honestly about where we are with this planning. And we haven't even put a shovel in the ground. And like I said, then the costs coming back to us are kind of high too. But like I said, we're trying to see where we can go and what our options are. We want to build a nice home and be members of the community and being kind. And like I said, thought the detached garage was something that we needed to do. And now that we're finding out, we probably could go a different angle with it. Could we do it? Yeah. But like I said, it would take a lot to redesign this property to make that all work.
Did I hear you say earlier that you were gonna have the pool or not have the pool?
No, sir, we don't have the BAR approval.
Okay, I was just wondering.
Right, yeah,
Well,
we're working
sure,
with the
sure.
architect who's very familiar with the BAR, rules. But, to Becca's point, yes, we're realizing that could be different, but we would have to really do some significant work to reconfigure to make that aesthetically pleasing and work out. So we thought we would come and see if there would be a possibility that you would consider the 4 feet, since, I know that it's a big consideration and we greatly appreciate it.
Is there anyone from the neighborhood here to speak? Or no?
Becca, could you show us the zoning in the area again?
So the properties you see in the light green here are NMX, neighborhood mixed use. So that's half of the block here. And then the blue is GR5 here. GR5 and GR2, which is the rest of the surrounding green over here, are the two types of zoning that you will see in the more residential part of the historic district. And you can see as this transitions into downtown Somerville, you go from neighborhood mixed use in the light green to downtown mixed use in the pink.
So the properties, so the blue and the brighter green properties this particular thing that she's asking for would be allowed? Would not be an issue?
So yes, GR5 and GR2, well, I'm sorry, excuse me, no. Because the house is more than one story, it would not be able to exceed. Well,
Not trying to.
let me
exceed
think.
it.
No, this is a good one. This is a good one.
I think it's 36 feet, isn't it?
So the only exception to, because it's not going to be, it would not be taller, as long as it weren't taller than the primary residence and the residence was one story and it was located in the rear, then it could exceed the height of the primary and would not be subject to that 20 feet.
But as these plans are calling for, even without the second story, that end is 25 feet. If they stuck to these plans, left the second story, if they built this house on any of these other lots,
It wouldn't be able to be 2 stories. It would have to be a 1-story home to not exceed. But if you're talking about keeping the same exact plan and moving it over, as long as it's not taller than the primary residence.
yeah, so that, and even without the top story, the primary residence is 25 feet.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Discussion?
Well, the way I see it, when you go through the variance conditions, right? You have extraordinary conditions because of the lot width, the trees and the drainage easement makes this lot very difficult to put a home on. It can only lay it out one way because of the lot width. The other properties are, hate to use this word, grandfather is old. They've already established the properties are in there. So they don't really apply to the other properties, right? Utilization wise, it would be hard, they want to utilize their property as a home, trying to get an extra living space without going high. So it would, if we said no, it would prohibit them from utilizing the property as more than just a 2-bedroom home, right? And doing this, I don't see how it would be a detriment to any adjacent properties, certainly not the ones in the back because they're apartment complexes already. The house next door is extremely tall. I don't think the garage would block anybody's view of anything. I think most of the structures around there are already taller than them as it is.
And going by in the street, you wouldn't even be able to see this, essentially. Driving up Richardson Avenue, this is well hidden. I mean, the garage is hidden by the would be hidden by the main residence. So thus, people driving by wouldn't be impacted.
Yeah, my argument is that I think the 4 standards are met. The 4 standards are met.
The other thing I can see, you gotta remember, we're looking the depth of the lot. We're not looking like it's laying out to the street. It's just going back. So we're not obstructing people also. All right. Anything else? Have a motion? Gary makes the motion that we approve.
I'll second it.
Any other discussion? All right, raise your right hand if you approve.
Thank you very much.
All right, y'all, unless you have anything for me, I don't have anything under miscellaneous tonight. So we can get a motion to adjourn if you'd like.
Before we do that, could I suggest that we add to our agenda for the next meeting a revision of our guidelines, because we now have the guidelines for this committee on the website say we have 5 members, so we need to just edit it for that.
I think they've updated it in the UDO, but I'll ask our public information officer to edit the website.
Oh, okay. Move we adjourn.
We have 6. One's absent.
Chad's.
We will have
No,
7.
no, the board is comprised of 7 members. It used to be 5. The document said, I mean, the guidelines for this committee say we have 5 members. We really have 7. We will. Just needs cleaning.
All right, do we have a motion to adjourn? All right,
Right here.